Get on the ground.
Making the United States safer,
We're getting these monsters out of the United States, out of Florida.
more prosperous.
It crowds schools, it crowds medical, it crowds housing.
That's the goal
We are going after murderers and rapists and traffickers.
of a large-scale immigration crackdown.
Bring them back!
Detentions,
The conditions are just absolutely terrible in there.
deportations.
This is exile.
Do the means justify the end?
Do you think the law is on their side?
No.
Is the strategy making us safer?
He goes to church, he pays his taxes.
There's really this huge increase in the number of people being arrested by ICE in the United States who've never been convicted of a crime.
Or is it causing real harm
Going back to Haiti is like a death sentence for me.
to people right here in our community?
It's just really hard knowing that what we do for this country, for the government, and how they treat us back.
Even U.S. citizens.
I mean, do you find yourself looking over your shoulder, even though you're a citizen?
Yes,
It's why WPTV Investigates is digging deeper into the issue of immigration enforcement in South Florida
I ran on the issue of illegals, and we have to get them out.
to understand its impact.
This is not a simple relocation. This is exile.
Managing immigration to the United States. The debate over how to do that has gone on for decades, and it's not the topic of this special report. We know the Trump administration has taken a hard line against most immigration, and the state of Florida has supported that mission. So I'm examining that mission and asking, is it helping, is it hurting, and is it legal?
Mourning the loss
We wake up every morning and it just kind of feels like a nightmare that we're like living through, you know?
of a family member gone.
He's my husband. He's my everything.
But still living.
Once he goes to Mexico, he can never come back here.
Maria Travieso was in the throes of treatment for stage 3 breast cancer when her husband, Luis Travieso, was detained by Florida Highway Patrol in October. Her ride to treatment, her source of support,
I'm not working. I lose my car. I lose everything.
ended up here.
This facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet.
Alligator Alcatraz, the immigration detention camp in the middle of the Everglades. The Florida Department of Emergency Management built it in 8 days last summer, less than 6 months into President Donald Trump's second term.
And I want to express my tremendous thanks to the state of Florida for embracing this opportunity.
WPTV cameras were allowed inside one time when it opened July 1st.
Listen, our job is to uphold the law.
The president and members of his administration also visited that day to mark the occasion. Then Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem promised the state-run facility would be held to ICE detention standards.
This is a state-of-the-art facility.
But since then,
The conditions are just absolutely terrible in there.
families have shared with us the stories from their loved ones inside Alligator Alcatraz.
You would think my stepdad murdered people. He showers every 3 days. His toenails are touching the ground. His beard is down to his belly button.
And in one circumstance,
They was feeding us 3 times a day, and I wasn't bad.
we heard a first-hand account.
There's like an open toilets, and then you figure out how to cover it to be more private.
Palm Beach restaurant manager Jose Gonzalez was detained at Alligator Alcatraz, then released in December following public outcry.
Jose has showed up for Palm Beach for years. Now Palm Beach is showing up for him.
When I heard my name and someone knocked me and, oh, you need to go, they told me, oh, just grab your personal stuff, you need to go.
ICE discretionarily releasing people from their custody without a court order, I have not heard of that.
Andrea Jakoski is the acting director of the Immigration Law Clinic at the University of Miami.
We actually had a client who was placed in the sun cage strategically for a number of hours. And there was actually a chain connecting the shackles at his wrists to the shackles at his ankles. And they held him in this cage, chain link cage, for several hours in the sun. At one point when he asked for water, an official brought him a cup of water and then poured it out in front of him.
Gonzalez also talked about that cage.
Yeah, I see them bringing them and leave them for like 4 hours, I guess.
Also known as the box in this Amnesty International report, following the nonprofit's own investigation into Alligator Alcatraz.
Did your client tell you why they put him in there, or why they said they put him in there?
They said they put him in there after a dispute about a garment that he had, and whether or not the garment he was wearing, it was a pair of boxers, were issued by the facility, or if he had somehow smuggled them into the facility.
So they put him in there over underwear?
Mm-hmm.
I asked the state and federal governments about the claims we've heard of poor conditions inside Alligator Alcatraz. A spokeswoman for the Florida Division of Emergency Management told me they comply with ICE detention standards. Tricia McLaughlin, then Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security, told me in an email, all detainee facilities are clean. Any allegations of inhumane conditions are false. When will the media stop peddling hoaxes about illegal alien detention centers and start focusing on American victims of illegal alien crime?
How significant of a problem is crime among undocumented immigrants?
A White House spokesman sent me press releases announcing decreases in overall crime and fentanyl trafficking at the southern border, along with the arrests of 7,000 alleged gang members during President Trump's first year back in office. I looked for more data on immigrant crime and found a 2024 study funded by the U.S. Department of Justice. It showed undocumented immigrants were less likely to commit a felony than both documented immigrants and U.S. citizens.
Claims that detaining and deporting non-citizens will reduce violent crime in the U.S. are a central part of the Trump administration's argument behind its aggressive approach to immigration. So we examined those claims that immigration authorities are targeting violent criminals.
I ran on the issue of illegals, and we have to get them out.
We are going after murderers and rapists and traffickers and drug dealers.
When we speak to people impacted by the immigration crackdown, like U.S. Marine Christopher Alonzo,
He's a very good man.
whose father was taken into custody in January,
They came out of nowhere, just pulled him over. They told him to get out of the vehicle and then put him in handcuffs. My dad asked what was the reason they pulled him over. Didn't give him a reason.
they often tell us the person detained has no criminal history. Something we verify by searching court records. And if you search ICE's own data,
The large majority of people being arrested by ICE don't have any criminal convictions.
David Hausman is an assistant professor at UC Berkeley Law. He's also the co-director of the university's Deportation Data Project.
What we want to do is get detailed data from the government on who it's arresting, detaining, and deporting.
Hausman and his colleagues publish that data online.
I think it's important for people to be able to use the government's raw data, the data that the government itself is relying on.
I'm going to check them first.
Of those in custody, Hausman found around 70% have a clean criminal record. Hausman tells me about 10% of detainees have been convicted of violent crimes.
I think the administration made an impossible promise. It said it wanted to pursue mass deportations of criminals, and that's just impossible because there aren't very many non-citizens in the United States who've been convicted of crimes.
I spoke with Florida's Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins about how those numbers support claims about protecting public safety.
Do you think Florida is a safer place to be now?
Absolutely, I do. We need to focus on the egregious, the criminals, the people who truly put everyone's lives at risk. But in the end, for those people who came here illegally and didn't follow the law of the land and are putting up a home here, I think there are programs specifically suited to them that they should take part in and square up their paperwork.
Does that make them the worst of the worst?
Well, I don't think it makes them the worst of the worst, but I don't think you can pass over the fact that they came here illegally.
Does having them...
Are they the priority? No. If they get caught up and they're pulled over and their immigration status isn't correct, well, then there's an accountability process for sure.
So is detaining those folks like collateral damage?
Collateral, I suppose you could look at it. I never looked at it from a collateral side, but no one's targeting the people living their lives.
Of the 5 families we've spoken to, one of them told us their loved one did have contact with the criminal justice system in the past. Luis Travieso was convicted on a drug possession charge with intent to sell more than 20 years ago and spent 3 years in prison. His wife and stepdaughter showed us documentation that he was complying with the terms of his release, which included annual check-ins with the immigration authorities to show that he was staying out of trouble and paying his taxes.
He is very ashamed of that past, and I believe that in the last 20-something years, he's worked very hard to make up for that mistake.
Now, cases like this point to a complicated reality when it comes to immigration enforcement. If a person is cooperating with the law, paying their taxes and doing what's asked of them, does that now make their presence illegal? Immigration attorneys tell me that the definition of legal status appears to be changing.
Do not come here because you will be removed. If you want to come here legally. Come here the right way.
That's Florida's Chief Financial Officer, Blaise Ingoglia, speaking here at Alligator Alcatraz last year. The message you just heard is a common one among those who support a tougher stance on immigration. Non-citizens won't have a problem if they enter the country legally. So I dug deeper into that message, and I learned that not only is the definition of legal status complicated, it's changing.
Oui, j'avais dit pas gagner aucun luck qui confirmé. But never thought that I would leave Haiti. But I still felt that at some point that Haiti was too small for my dream.
Farah LaRue runs a marketing company based in South Florida. It mainly focuses on the Haitian community.
My dream is to become the most successful Haitian woman entrepreneur of the world.
LaRue can legally work toward that goal because she has been granted temporary protected status. Immigration authorities can grant TPS to immigrants from a list of countries with conditions deemed so dangerous that people can't return safely. People with TPS are authorized to work, and they're not removable from the U.S.
Because of TPS, I've been able to rebuild my life.
Last year, the Department of Homeland Security moved to undesignate most countries on its TPS list, including Haiti.
Going back to Haiti is like a death sentence for me.
Losing TPS would immediately strip people like LaRue of their ability to work and pay taxes.
I am here now taking the time to fight for my right to exist.
The U.S. Supreme Court is now considering a case involving Haitian and Syrian TPS. It would affect more than 350,000 people currently living lawfully in the U.S.
Even though we talk about this concept of lawful migration, there are ways to think about migration that isn't necessarily someone coming in on a visa.
Yeah.
So I think the most common theme is just irregularity and changes in the law.
Andrea Jakoski tells me the uncertainty over TPS is just one example of that irregularity, as the definition of legal immigration appears to be narrowing.
People talk a lot about lawfully immigrating to the United States or entering the right way, and it's just not necessarily true, because those who are requesting asylum or fear-based protections are doing so in accordance with law, and people who are in these proceedings litigating their cases are still those who are being caught up in this massive enforcement mammoth that we're seeing today.
And once someone is caught up in that enforcement mechanism, Jakoski says she's seen those rules change too. From who is being detained.
DHS used to have published policy and memoranda that they need to consider the interests of U.S. citizen children or caretakers for U.S. citizen children in the detention and potential removal of someone.
To what happens if they are detained in Alligator Alcatraz?
I would say there's a combination of access to counsel issues, right? There's attorneys being able to visit with their clients, an inconsistent application of what the rules are. There are barriers to people inside actually accessing their attorneys themselves.
And in some cases, where they go once they're removed from the United States.
We're hearing about people that are being deported to countries they have no connection to, all the way into different parts of Africa.
It's not clear exactly how many people have been removed to third countries, But according to Human Rights First, a nonprofit that monitors ICE flights, of the nearly 2,500 removal flights between February 2025 and February 2026, 27 of them were carrying people to countries they weren't from.
Do you think the law is on their side?
No.
A federal judge agreed, writing in a 2025 ruling that deporting a person to the wrong country where they are likely to be persecuted or tortured is, quote, not fine, nor is it legal. The federal government is appealing that ruling. I tried to learn more about how the administration justifies its policy changes. The Department of Homeland Security didn't respond to my emails. But the White House did get back to me, offering me an interview with Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson.
All right, it is 1:25. I'm going to call it.
She didn't show up for that interview.
A communications staffer didn't respond to my request to reschedule, instead sending me that email citing the nationwide decreases in violent crime in recent years as their rationale. Now, both the state and federal governments also argue that removing immigrants from the U.S. makes room for citizens to prosper.
It crowds schools, it crowds medical, it crowds housing.
A study by the Cato Institute, a Washington think tank widely considered to be libertarian, found that immigrants generate more tax revenue than the average person in the U.S., but consume fewer government resources. The study found that from 1994 to 2023, immigrants generated a net positive of more than $10 trillion.
May I ask what brought you to the U.S.?
Dreams, hopes, belief that we could have a life in which we would thrive.
Renata Bozzetto is one of Florida's leading voices for immigrants.
We need to remember who our neighbors are. We need to find each other in our humanity.
The Brazil native serves as deputy director for the Florida Immigrant Coalition. She tells me in recent months, the organization has been fielding an unprecedented volume of calls from families in crisis.
Is that sustainable for you guys?
No, it's not sustainable.
Including a new kind of crisis Bozzetto says she's never seen in her more than 15 years with the organization. American-born children needing to leave the U.S. to reunite with their parents who have been removed.
And this is not a simple relocation, this is exile. We are forcing U.S. citizens out of the country so they can seek safety.
How many of these flights would you say you've provided to children?
More than a dozen in Palm Beach County.
And for U.S.-born children who remain in our country, like the Marine.
You're right there.
Christopher Alonzo and his younger siblings.
It's just really traumatizing for them.
They say they've also been harmed.
My dad has been the main provider. And with him gone, it's going to be really hard for them. Especially if the kids need something or my mom needs something herself. And scared to go out in case something like that happens again.
Do you find yourself looking over your shoulder, even though you're a citizen?
Yes, because it's just really hard knowing that what we do for this country, for the government, and how they treat us back.
Despite the struggles, advocates like Bozzetto and hardliners like Lieutenant Governor Collins hope for a path forward.
We have to have meaningful immigration reform. We can do better, and I think it's time to have those conversations on a national basis.
When we meet eye to eye, when we talk about what we do, what we benefit from having a robust, vibrant society and community, having immigrant labor, but also having immigrant culture, having immigrant compassion, immigrant innovation. When we talk about that, it's not a threat. We really are in this together.